A very good morning to everyone, and welcome to our first webinar for the year on balancing animal nutrition with premixes. My name is Dr. Chandni Parihar, and I take care of marketing for Nutreco India. At the outset, I would like to thank you on behalf of the entire team for joining us today. Present with me are Dr. Saurabh Shekhar, GM Nutreco India, Dr. Sabiha Kadri, Dr. Suyash Vardhan, and Mr. Sandeep Hundre. Before we proceed further, Dr. Saurabh would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Chandni. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. This is our first for 2021, but definitely we had done a lot in past in 2020. This year started with balancing animal nutrition with premixes, and why we started this. The first one is definitely our factory, which has gone into production in India at Hyderabad. The second one is that premix, as you all know, you are better experts than us. Premix is a very important and critical component for succeeding into feed aspect of the business. And again, premixing technology is one part, but it's always a balance of art and science. What we call is the premix with safety, traceability, and quality, which gives you the consistency on your performance, is very important for us to perform better and to provide value-added services to our customers. So it'll be good that when we hear about from our technical experts, also share your thoughts, questions, and feedback to us so that we can improve, and definitely we can learn from each other during this session. Thank you everyone again for participating in this. Over to you, Dr. Chandni.
Thank you, Dr. Saurabh. And before I introduce our first speaker, a few general instructions for the participants. Please keep your audio to computer audio to ensure that there's no disruptions. You can ask questions in the middle by typing in your queries in the question box or in the chat box. You can also raise your hand and we will reach out immediately to you. All the questions will be taken up during the question and answer round to ensure that we are not surpassing our time, and we will also be unmuting all the participants during the question and answer round. Introducing our first speaker for the day now, Dr. Sabiha Kadri. She heads technical for Nutreco India, and she has more than 15 years of experience in animal nutrition. With a PhD from IVRI, Dr. Sabiha has worked extensively on nutritional management concepts, providing advice on feed cost management, raw material quality, and feed additives management. Welcoming Dr. Sabiha to please present.
Thank you, Dr. Chandni. And thanks everyone for joining the session today. So today I'll be touching upon the basics of premix production and the key feature of our premix technology. So to start with, so what is premix? As the name indicates, it is making a pre-blend before you add those ingredients into the final feed or before it is being fed to the animals. So this premix should be a uniform mixture of micro ingredients that go into it, along with a suitable diluent or carrier. Premixing, as such, may seem to be a very simple technology. It is not so at all. It is a complicated mix of raw materials. And like Dr. Saurabh was mentioning, there is a lot of art and science that goes behind the quality of the raw materials that are being used and the way they are being formulated. That is the reason it should only be carried out by those who have an expertise in micro ingredient handling and also the premixing technology. So why premixes? We all know this. The micro ingredients that go into a premix are at very small inclusion levels. For example, take like 25 milligrams of B12, we add in 1000 kgs of feed. And this is something similar to adding a small glass of B12 solution into a very large swimming pool and expecting that it will be present in equal amounts in every part of the water, which is practically not possible. So even though these are, the raw materials are added in small inclusion levels, they are required for vital metabolic functions within the animal's body. Okay, so there is where the homogeneity of premix comes in and is very crucial, so that every animal that is being fed with the premix gets the desired amount of the micronutrients as per its nutrient needs. So when all these are very critical, any small error that could take place in premix production can affect a large number of animals. So for example, a 1 ton of broiler premix can affect like 2.5 lakh of broiler birds. So a high level of precision should be carried out while formulating these premixes. Okay, so there are various steps involved while we are producing our premix at our factory. The major ones being understanding or knowledge, quality standard, this is our internal one, known as nutrace, that I'll be explaining in the further slide, and then formulation and mixing. So what do we mean by understanding or knowledge? It's having a basic understanding with respect to the nutritional requirement of the micro ingredients of various species, like broiler, the layer, the breeder, dairy, aqua, etc. So their requirements are different. So we basically need to know what their requirements are. And then according to the nutrients they require, we should have a knowledge of the forms of the micro ingredients that need to be added, which type, how bioavailable they are, what is their interactions, how do they act with each other, their stability, etc. So once we have a basic understanding, next comes the heart of the premix production, that is the quality standard. Okay, so we have our own internal quality standard on top of the ISO, the GMP, FEMIQS, etc. This is built in to ensure that consistency is maintained throughout the production process, right from the raw material to the finished premix. So that's where nutrace helps us a lot. And also, whilst we are doing this, we also need to keep in mind that it's the producer who is important and not the supplier. Okay, so why do we say this? Because we have strict quality control and quality assurance methods for us to ensure that we produce a quality product. So the same pattern can be seen in other industries. For example, Apple company, everyone has an iPhone or Apple Watch or some other kind of the Apple, and they have very strict global QC measures. That is the reason most of the spare parts of these products are procured from China, a bit from Taiwan, Japan, etc., assembled in China and then distributed to sales. So it's actually how strong your QC measures are that determines the quality of the product that is being produced. And it's not important. The suppliers are not that important. So our quality standard nutrace is based on 5 strong pillars with equal emphasis on each of those pillars. Okay, and the first one is the certified quality and safety. So this ensures that we procure our raw materials from suppliers who have strong certification, and we also provide international certifications so as we are able to produce a high quality and safe premix. And next is very important one, the ingredient and supplier assessment and management. Here we make sure that we procure only healthy, safe, and as well as sustainable raw materials from approved vendors to our own auditing program. So we go to the suppliers, audit them for the type of the raw materials they produce, how they produce it, how much quantities do they produce, and if they are sustainable enough. Next comes the crucial one, the monitoring and the control. So we ensure that we produce reliable and safe premixes and they are offered to the industry. So the raw materials are monitored not only for the the nutritional parameters, but also for the undesirable substances using our approved methods. And also there are standards set in which give an alert if any are present. And next is the risk management. So this is to manage any risk that could crop in adverse situations and to facilitate that we take the right decisions during those times. And then last but not the least is the tracking and the tracing. So this is achieved by having adequate documentation and also allows for effective traceback processes in case of a recall. So we ensure this by having barcodes in both our raw materials as well as finished products. So in the future, if there are any quality complaints or performance issues coming back from the customer, we can have an end-to-end traceability and even go back up to the level of the supplier to see who had supplied that, what was the amount you produced, what was the quality of that raw material, etc. So my colleague Sandeep, the next speaker, will be touching upon a lot on this. Okay, so the next one, so we have a knowledge, we have a quality standard, and next comes the ingredient assessment. So, as part of the quality standard, all the incoming raw materials, they assess for various parameters. So the leading questions here to ask to ourselves is, how are we going to procure these raw materials? Which is the form we are going to produce, from which source, and what is the logic behind it, or what is the scientific statement behind it? Why do we do that? So to address this, we base our questions on 3 important parameters: the bioavailability of the raw material, the stability of the raw material, and the powder properties measured in terms of its physical and chemical characteristics. So the picture here, you can see copper sulfate of different forms or different types, I would say. So please have a look at this picture for a few seconds, because there'll be a poll following this. Over to you, Chandni.
Thanks, Doctor. We'll be launching the poll now. Thank you all for your vote, and these are the results we have. So for A, 7%, B, 29%, C, 29%, and can be any of these, 36%. Over to you, Dr. Sabiha.
Thanks, Chandni, and thanks everyone for taking up this poll. So the answer is obviously the option D. It can be any of these. Why? Because even though they are of varying characteristics. So for example, the C, it's a bit wet and coarser in nature, makes it handling a bit difficult. A is too fine. Again, it can stick together, or it can flow a lot, flushing we call. B has an optimum particle size, so seems to be better. But any of these forms can be used if you know how to handle these different characteristics of the same raw material. So that is where the carriers and the processing aids come into play, which you can actually which I'll be talking in the next few slides. Channi, are you able to see my screen?
No, not currently.
Okay, 1 second. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the 3 parameters, the bioavailability, the stability, and the powder properties in terms of the physical and chemical characteristics. Talking of bioavailability, it is the amount of raw material or the compound that is retained inside the body of the animal for it to carry out its metabolic functions. And it is a very important parameter to have a knowledge upon before even the selection of the raw materials. Before even you go for selection, you should know which are the raw materials we need to procure. So we have quite a knowledge on that, and accordingly we select the raw materials. So the form of the micro ingredient to be selected is very, very important. So for example, we saw the copper sulfate. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. I think there's still some problem with your screen. We'll just solve this technical glitch. Give me a moment.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you please? Thank you.
Thank you. So sorry about that. So so I was talking about bioavailability and how bioavailability is very important parameter to be selected before we even have a before we even include that raw material into the premix. So we need to have a knowledge which are the raw materials having high bioavailability, and accordingly select those raw materials and include it into the premix. So for example, you can see here two forms of copper here. One is our traditional copper sulfate, which we saw in the previous slide as well. And the other one you see here in green color is the hydroxy form of the copper. Okay, so hydroxy forms are an innovation to the industry, and they have very high bioavailability when compared to the copper sulfate, owing to their stability and the way they are produced. So that was with respect to the chemical characteristic, but also in terms of physical characteristic, the hydroxy forms have a better, flowability than the copper sulfates, making them, easy to handle in a premix plant. Then comes the next parameter, the stability. So there are a lot of micro ingredients that have stability issues. The famous ones being the vitamins, and they are highly susceptible and sensitive to various external stressors. So they can be in the form of moisture, light, pressure, heat, chemicals, pH, and other supplements like the trace minerals and any other oxidizing and reducing agents. So while we include the vitamins, we need to ensure that we add in sufficient carriers, suitable carriers, and processing aids so as to produce a stable and a quality premix. So talking of stability, stable raw material should be the one that is not highly reactive, has good powder properties, and has less hygroscopicity. So when such raw materials are included in a premix, the end premix will tend to be a stable one. So we wanted to check the stability of a premix, and we took two premixes, subjected them to a temperature of 40 degrees Celsius at a relative humidity of 85% over a period of 24 hours. And out of the two premixes, one tend to remain the same even after 24 hours. So this means it had quality raw materials going into it and had sufficient amount of the carriers, etc. The other one, went into a discoloration and was hygroscopic. So this might be because it had raw materials that were hygroscopic enough and they were not handled in a proper way so as to produce a stable premix. So stability is very important. So a stable premix should be the one that has guaranteed analysis throughout its shelf life. It should be free flowing without any lumps and should be produced in a very safe manner. So next comes the physical and chemical properties of the premix. So each and every ingredient has a particular physical and physical property. So like the particle size, its shape, density, flowability, etc. And they are equally important as that of the chemical characteristics because they define how the premix looks like, what type of premix we offer, and the handling of the raw materials, their possible interactions, and the mixability of these raw materials. So it starts with visual approach. So by looking at the raw material, we should be able to take a primitive decision with respect to the acceptance or the rejection of the raw material. So for example, the ferrous source. So on the right hand side, you can see 4 pictures in boxes of ferrous sources. So the first one is ferrous sulfate heptahydrate. It is green in color, mostly in a crystalline form, making its handling very difficult in a premix facility, and also is highly hygroscopic and thereby unstable. So this is not the form recommended to be used in animal nutrition industry. So with color itself, you can reject this source of ferrous. This one is ferrous oxide. Okay, again highly susceptible to oxidation and is not bioavailable to the animal. So this also is not the form to be used in our industry. The gray color here you see is ferrous sulfate monohydrate, and it's a stable one and is highly bioavailable to the animal when we talk of the inorganic source. So this comes in various shades of gray, and by looking at the color, to some extent we can say that this is the form to be used. The one you see here, a bit of dark brown or reddish brown color, is again ferrous sulfate monohydrate, which has been oxidized. So it has not been stored adequately and it has undergone oxidation. So this is again not the form to be used. That was with respect to the visual approach. So by looking at the raw materials, you should be able to take a decision with respect to its inclusion or not. So the measurements that we make are very objective, they're real objective. So for example, you see here a raw material, this is how it looks to the naked eye, but we also look it under the microscope. So, and then it gives us an indication of how the particles are and how they are distributed. So that is where the physical profiling comes into play, and various parameters are measured here. The first one is the particle size distribution. Particles, they tend to be either fine or coarse, depending upon how they are produced. Fine is good for mixability, but at the same time, it can reduce the flowability. It has high electrostatic charges and can tend to be very dusty. The coarse, on the other hand, they're bigger in particle size, but they're very good in flowability and reduce the dust and are less reactive. So we really take a decision with respect to whether we are going to use the coarse form or the fine form for the raw materials that are to be included in the premix. And then, of course, the famous density, both the bulk as well as the tab density, they are very important to measure to understand the packaging details as well as the flowability and the mixability of the premix, because it forms the base to give an indication of how compressible or cohesive a premix is. So that's very important, because the premix is produced at a facility and then it goes to customer's place. So even they should have premixes which are not too cohesive enough so that it easily flows in their systems when they are automated, or when manual is being used. So they should not be cohesive enough to stick to the scopes when they are being used in the feed production. Then next comes the flowability. Everyone is aware of this. So it's the ability of the raw material to flow very freely. So we have specific flow meters to measure this, which I'll be detailing in the next slide. And then hygroscopicity is the ability of the raw material to pick up moisture from external conditions. So we measure that through our moisture percentage, as well as through lump tests that we carry out in incubators. And then, of course, the homogeneity. So it's measured through both physical and chemical methods, physical by naked eye and chemical by coefficient of variation studies. So for example, if you see here, this is how we carry out the physical profiling of the raw material. For example, this is niacin. So it has a very good flowability of 2. So I'll show what 2 flowability means in the next slide. It has good bulk and tab density. So it's not a compressible or a cohesive raw material. And most of the raw material falls in the particle size of 150 to 300 microns. So this gives us an idea with respect to type of carrier to be included in the premix and the type of coarse or fine raw materials to be included. So the flowability meter, so we measure it through flowability cups of varying diameter, the one in the up with the highest diameter and the one in the end at the lowest diameter. We measure a specific amount of raw material and we allow it to flow through the cups. So the 1 and 2 are the best ones in terms of flowability and thereby the handling, and anything 5 and 6 are not desirable and we reject those raw materials. So that was with respect to the physical characteristics. Then comes the most important one, the chemical characteristics. They play a role with respect to achieving the nutrient claims as per the requirement of the customer. So we use NAR technology here, And we use it to map to a large extent all the incoming raw materials, and to some extent for end products, we use the fingerprinting technology, and we also assess the activity and potency through that. The undesirable contaminants, such as the heavy metals and dioxins, are also measured majorly for the minerals and the carriers. And of course, the pH is estimated for the vitamins because they're highly sensitive to pH. And we also measure the pH of the carriers so that we use the right carrier for those vitamin mixes. And of course, the coefficient of variation studies. So, quality checks are required for production of reliable and safe premixes. And we carry out on a regular basis through our coefficient of variation studies, which ensures the homogeneity of the premix. And we carry out through both the chemical as well as the microtracer technology. And then the carryover studies are also conducted by us to avoid any cross contaminations that could happen when different recipes are taken up in the mixer. So next comes the carrier characteristics. So the carrier should be the one, should be free from moisture, fungi, toxins. We should have optimum powder particles as that of the raw materials. It should be the one which prevents demixing or segregation. It should have sufficient powder carrying capacity so that it coats the raw materials and carries it along with it, reduce the water activity, and improve the overall flowability, stability, and handling of premix. So you can see here, the two types of carriers. So the one in the first, it complies with the characteristics of the vitamins. The other one doesn't. So the one in the top is the most desirable carrier to be used. So within carrier, we have different types. The inorganic carrier, or known as a diluent, and organic carrier, which is simply known as a carrier itself. So inorganic carrier, they are generally cheap comparatively. They have a very good density. They have both low as well as high powder carrying capacity depending upon the particle size that we use. The disadvantage is that they have a very high pH. But coming to the organic carrier, they are comparatively expensive. They have high powder carrying capacity. So, it allows raw materials to free very easily when they are included. The disadvantage is they have low density. So anything with a low density can cause segregation or demixing. It has low pH, which is an advantage. And also limitation is that it can be prone to infestation if not handled properly. So it's always advisable to use a mix of inorganic and organic carrier in specific ratios. And then come the processing aids. So these are the ones to improve the stability and flowability of premix. Vitamins are a mix of fat and water soluble vitamins, with the fat soluble being easily susceptible to oxidation. That's the reason antioxidants need to be added to prevent their oxidation. And then of course the free flowing agents, they are added to improve the flow characteristics of the fine particles. So for example, we talked about this earlier as well. When the particles are too fine, they tend to stick to each other and reduce the flowability of the particle. But when those particles are coated with the free flowing agents or the particles with high powder carrying capacity, then they are separated, kept apart from each other, and this leads to improved flowability. Then comes the most important one, the formulation. So we have a whole idea of understanding, and then we procure the raw materials according to our knowledge, and then comes the formulation. So formulator, he works to put in raw materials so that the nutritional claim is met. He aptly selects the raw materials. He also chooses the carrier and the processing aids according to the powder properties of the raw material, and he also chooses them keeping in mind the safety of the personnel and the environment. So he makes the formula and sends it for batching. So next comes the mixing. The mixing should be, produced mix should be homogeneous. So by this we mean that the same ratio of the added ingredient should be present in each and every part of the premix, and the variation should be less than 5%. The one we produce here has a variation less than 3%, which Sandeep will be talking about. And the premix homogeneity is very crucial in terms of consistent production. So this is just an example of how two different premixes can look like. So obviously this is not a homogeneous one. This is more homogeneous with having equal amounts of the white and the brown particles. So at trial, we ensured him homogeneity because we have knowledge on the mixing order, which go first, which next, etc. What's the mixing time that we have established through coefficient of variation studies? The filling of the mixer, neither underfilled nor overfilled, which can lead to non-uniformity issues. And of course, we have a large amount of knowledge on the properties of the ingredients. And that was for the raw materials and how the premix is produced. After the premix is produced, it undergoes a QC check. So again, for the finished premix, we follow nutrace, the same 5 pillars to ensure that the quality premix is produced. We also carry out physical profiling for all the batches that we produce. Chemical profiling is done once in a year at random for specific premixes or as per the need from the industry. So just have a look at this premix pictures. There will be a poll following this, which is the one best to be used. Shamini, poll please.
Launching the poll now. You'll all see a question on your screen, and you can choose the right option there. Thank you all for sharing your responses, and we'll be closing the poll now. The poll results are for A, 37%, B, 16%, C, 37%, and all the samples, 11%. Over to you, Dr. Sabiha.
Thank you, Chandni. Doctor, if you can help me share the screen.
Your screen is visible this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it can be any. The option D was the right one. Thanks for taking up the poll. It all depends upon how we produce the premix. So for example, the B1 you see here, it's more of a darker premix that you see. That is because oil was used in this case. Oil, helps in controlling the dust to a larger extent. So the dosing, etc., is very good when oil is being used. But in conditions of extreme climates like hot and humid, they can undergo oxidation. Okay, so but if the conditions are favorable, B is also a good premix to be used. And the A you see here, you can see particles of copper sulfate, but they are uniformly distributed. It's not that they are concentrated in few places and in other places they are not present. So they are uniformly distributed. So it's just that the copper sulfate particles are a bit coarse, and that is the reason you are seeing them here. But this is also a good premix to go. C, on the other hand, had uniform particle size shape of the raw materials, and that is the reason you see that it is more uniform, and you do not see any obviously visible raw materials. So C is also a good one. So all the types A, B, and C are good to go, depending upon the forms that have been used and the carriers that have been used. So what do we offer in TRAU as a part of the premixes? So we do offer vitamin premixes as a standalone, mineral premixes as a standalone, and we also offer a composite premix known as Max Care, which has a combination of the feed supplements and the required feed additives. So why do we want to have a composite premix? Talking of the challenges, many of us are aware of this. It's in terms of the quality and quantity, basically. So quality in terms of the quality of the micro ingredients that are being procured, how they are stored. A bit headache is actually the inventory management. And then the quantity of the micro ingredients that are procured, because generally they're procured in smaller quantities. So pricing management becomes a very big challenge. These are actually very known challenges to the customer. To some extent, these challenges are known or unknown, we can say. So the major raw materials like the maize, soya, MBM, etc. procured. Few have labs to analyze, few are dependent on external labs, and few do not have labs at all. So we really don't know if the precision nutrition is being followed with respect to the nutrients that are being delivered to the bird, and if they are formulated in a right way. So to some extent, this becomes a small question mark. And then there are a lot of hidden challenges. These are with respect to the type of mixer that is being used to produce this composite premix, or very popularly known as base mix in the industry, and the mixing time that is being used, what is the mixing order that is being followed, and while we are weighing this raw materials, the micro ingredients, how are they weighed, what is the quality of the weighing scale, and whether this weighing scale is calibrated on a regular basis. Do we measure the CV of the mix that is being produced? If no, then non-homogeneity is highly possible, and this non-homogeneity of the base mix or the composite premix will lead to non-uniformity of the flock and inconsistent performance. So to address this, so we saw that there's a lot of headache involved there. MaxCare is a one-stop solution that will allow you to relax like you are near a very cool beach. So MaxCare has a balanced mix of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and feed additives, required feed additives. We have standard formula, and we also do customize it depending upon the requirements of the customer. The homogeneity of the micro ingredients is highly ensured here because we have an expertise in micro ingredient handling, and they are always clubbed with precision nutrition offerings, so that the MaxCare formulation as well as the final feed formula that is being used, it meets the nutritional requirements of the animals. And it is optimized in feed cost. I would not say lesser feed cost or higher feed cost. It's optimized so that it gives a better performance and consistent animal performance. And the one to stress upon here is it's an antibiotic free produce, so we do not use antibiotics in our facility. So neither AGPs nor anticoccidials are used in our MaxCare. So the benefits are in terms of convenience. That's the first and primemost one. Because the customer need not have to maintain inventory of too many micro ingredients, and it's very easy dosing for him. No human errors comes in. Just have to put 1 or 2 bags per ton of the mixer, and then it's a simple purchase. Need to be in contact with just one supplier. Simple logistics. Too many vehicles will not be coming into the feed mill or the farm, so only very few vehicles coming in. Assured quality because of our micro ingredient expertise, and of course assured performance in terms of better body weight FCR, better uniformity, and better production characteristics in terms of the reproductive animals. So the application and the services, so they have to be applied directly into the mixer, so just 1 or 2 bags per ton. The dose varies from 1.5 to 5% for MaxCare depending upon the formula. It's available for various species, so broilers, layers, breeders, and the dairy. It's available for different growth phases, pre-starter, starter, finisher. Different MaxCares are available, and for production stage also it differs. So for example, in dairy we have the transition phase separately and the lactation phase separate. And we provide strong technical expertise along with it. So we provide the formulation of the feed that needs to be used with it. We also offer the master lab services, which is our nutritional and microbiological laboratory available in Hyderabad. And we also offer NOVA services, which is a mobile NAR technology, which allows to take right decisions with respect to the acceptance and the quality of the raw materials. So the key takeaways, so premixing is an art, a lot of science going into it. Its production should be carried out only by one who has an expertise in it. It should be produced very carefully with great precision, because even small errors can cause huge losses in animal performance. The homogeneity and the flowability of the premix are crucial. The premix produced should be safe, reliable, stable, sustainable, as well as traceable. So the expertise actually lies in how we buy the best quality raw materials and the way we formulate it so that the best products will be produced according to the customer requirements. Thank you from my end.
Thank you, Dr. Sabiha, and thank you for such an insightful presentation. For the participants, we've been receiving a few questions. As first mentioned, we'll be taking up all the questions in the end. And now I'll call upon Mr. Sandeep Hundre, who will be giving a very intuitive virtual tour of our production facility. He's our quality assurance manager for Tron Nutrition India. He has 10 years of hands-on experience in quality control and quality assurance in industries such as pharmaceutical, animal nutrition, and feed. He has worked closely with processes like QMS implementation, vendor assessments, HACCP, QC development, and new product development. And now, welcoming Mr. Sandeep Hundre.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We take immense pleasure to welcome you to our Jachalla factory. We will take you forward to our virtual tour of the factory. This factory is the state-of-the-art production facility at Jachalla in Hyderabad, which basically brings out the global expertise to India, bringing out the local solutions at Indian subcontinent. So what we can see here is our factory entrance. Basically, this factory is designed in a way to dedicatedly having cater the man movement and the vehicular movement. If you see here, going ahead, we have different gates allowing our manpower to enter and vehicle with our raw materials, wherein our security checks the critical parameters of vehicle bringing the materials, basically ingredients. We check whether the PO has been issued, the raw material has been approved, is having assessed by the quality assurance and accompanied with a certificate of analysis. And with respect to man movement, security basically checks with respect to the biodefense as we are facing coronavirus, the physical state of the employee, which is entering into the factory. Here, the security also takes care of the weight of the vehicle, which is bringing in the ingredients. He checks the target weight, which is invoiced to us, and the outgoing weight as well, to reduce any kind of deviations into the vehicle or the ingredients received. Going ahead, this is our bird's eye view of the factory, wherein all the area has been dedicatedly designed in such a way that there is only one-way movement of ingredients. If you see raw material going ahead into the production area and coming out into the finished good area. The tower height is 45 meters, which is one of a kind into the industry. It facilitates basically the precision weighing equipments and transfer of ingredients to the mixer, facilitating good homogeneity of the premix and compliance to our quality requirements. If you see the facility from top view, we can see a very diverse arrangement of facilities which we cater here, basically as a commitment to our environment and the company policy. We have various stations with respect to rainwater harvesting, giving the mother earth whatever rainwater we are receiving at the Jachalla side, and any wastewater which has been generated in the factory, which has been treated and been reused into the plant itself. We will take you forward to our raw material receipt area. Here we have the raw material unloading bay, wherein the approved vehicles will be docked here by assistance from our security. We have equipped with the dock leveler, wherein the forklift enters the vehicle and unloads the lots what we receive. This is basically arranged in an order so that there will be minimal handling by man, which helps us to maintain the integrity of the product, as well as helps us in order to reduce the man handling, basically. Once the raw material has been received, it has been kept into quarantine area and the sample is withdrawn. wherein it has been subjected to quality control test as per the monitoring program. And individual raw material which has been received lot wise is labeled with a barcode just to comply to our requirement of tracking and tracing. So what all the ingredients which we receive in the factory is been labeled with a unique barcode which the system identifies during its complete processing. We'll move ahead with our warehouse. Here we have the complete picture of our storage areas. Our storage areas has been divided into two groups, basically two locations. One is the ambient temperature, or which is not having any subjective cooling facilities. This area where all our ingredients has been stored is been equipped with active ventilation system, which helps us keep the temperature below by at least 5 degrees to our atmospheric temperature. For example, if the temperature at Jachala is 35 degrees Celsius, we will be having around 30 degrees temperature in the warehouse. And again, to store the sensitive ingredients such as vitamins, all our vitamins are stored into cold storage area, wherein the temperature is monitored throughout the day. In case of any deviations observed, this temperature, whatever has been observed, is been logged and recorded for the day, for each day. Okay, now once we receive all the raw materials and it's been stored, these raw materials has been released by quality controls after approving to the desired parameters. Once these raw materials has been approved, production request for the issuance and gets the ingredients for the daily production. Here we can see our carrier intake station. It is a big bag handling station wherein we can handle bags up to 1 ton, and this system is equipped with again barcode system here and HMI, which is human machine interface, wherein you can see the description of the ingredient, what is going inside. Once the operator scans the barcode, the system allows it to dump the ingredients into this intake station, where this ingredient has been taken to our 8th floor, which is the storage area, where we'll be going now. So this storage area is part of the production area now. So what we have here is the storage locations, which are our silos. If you see here, this is the carrier storage area. What we have seen at the ground floor, the intake station brings the material here by means of conveying systems such as bucket elevator, and with the help of a distributor, it is automatically distributed to its dedicated storage areas or storage silos. What we have here is other ingredients intake stations such as vitamins and minerals. This has been constructed in a way that we handle the material only at the point of intake, and that is the minimal handling or the only handling done by a human at the intake stations. Once these bins are filled, the material is been completely taken into production process automatically. So again, these systems are equipped with the HMI and the barcode scanner, wherein the system operator scans the barcode and allows it to take it into the storage. What we can see next area is our precision weighing area, wherein the active ingredients has been precisely weighed and transferred through this particular conveyance system. The precision of our weighing system is up to 200 grams with a deviation of 0.2%, and which is allowing us to basically negate any kind of deviation into the process. As I'm talking, this process is completely automatic. There are no human intervention, only it has been monitored by a person who is centrally controlling all this process. We'll get to the next room. Here, this floor caters the control room as well as the carrier weighing area. Control room has been equipped with our SCADA software, wherein all the data acquisition and controls is being taken care by the SCADA engineer. The engineer basically monitors all the activity from the intake, weighing, and conveying to the mixer, mixing, and then packaging. So each step is been monitored by the system and been allowed by the engineer to move forward when the batch complies to the specified weight and process. So all the process control is been controlled at this particular station. We have also the hand at station wherein we can accommodate any customization to the premix as per the needs of the customer. This is again one of the station which is having equipped with a particular barcode scanning system where any ingredient which is going to the system is been taken into record. We'll be going to the final weighing area. These are the big hoppers where the final weighing of the batches happens. After the confirmation from the SCADA engineer that the batch matches to the target quantity, the batch can be moved or conveyed to mixer. So this is our mixer. Its make is Buller. It's a single shaft pedal mixer having RPM of 1470, and it has been validated for a CV of below 3%. This mixer is having high speed mixing capabilities, which gives us so precise homogeneity with our process. What we can see next is our centrifugal sieve system. This system basically gives out any kind of contamination which has been there or lumps formed into the premix, as these may give further defects into the premix. So to negate any kind of lumps or any kind of contaminations in the premix, it's been taken out from the system by this centrifugal sieve system. Once the sieving is completed, what we can see here is the packing hopper area. This is the packing hopper area which is connected to the surge hopper, as this acts as the buffer for our packing machine. So bagging machine is also one of a kind in the industry. What we can see here is our bagging machine. Allow us to give you a brief video about how the packing operation happens at our nutrition facility.
Our commitment to quality assurance to our customer means that we bring the latest technologies and innovations. One such unique technology is the automatic bagging equipment. This equipment, with a capacity of 300 bags per hour, is fully guarded in line with our global safety standards. It has a high precision weighing system with an auto sampler. With no manual intervention, the finished goods remain completely untouched by hand.
Yes, so as you have seen what our packaging machine is capable of, as this equipment allow us to gives out the speed. Also, it allows us to have the packing operation completely safe to our operators and giving out the minimal human intervention in the complete packaging process. This minimal human intervention, as we can see from our packaging, our manufacturing process, is a peculiarity here. Once this finished goods are packed, it's been transferred to the quarantine area where it has been stayed till the quality control gives the approval, and later once it is approved, it is let to be dispatched to our customers. What is peculiar about all this process is this complete manufacturing process is having end-to-end tracking and tracing and controls where we can determine the process has been followed and completed with the set process control parameters, quality control parameters, and requirements of our safety standards. This is all to our from our factory side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep Handre. A very unique virtual tour that you have shown us. And now we'll be open for questions. So we have been receiving questions from the audience, but we will also unmute all the participants now. And in case you want to ask the questions, you can also ask those questions to us. In the meanwhile, if you have more questions, you can just type in your questions in the chat or in the question box. So our first question for the day is for Dr. Sabiha. Can we use a combination of organic and inorganic barrier? And in
Thanks, Dr. Chandni. We of course can use a combination of organic and inorganic carriers in the premix, and a lot of science has gone behind this, science and R&D, with respect to the percentage inclusion of both of this. So we will not be able to disclose exactly how much it is. So, but yeah, we do use a combination of both of these, the organic and inorganic, so that it improves the flowability and the stability of the premix. Thanks, Doctor.
Thanks, Doctor. Another question also for you. So the question is that what is the expiry time if we mix trace minerals and vitamins together? And is there any chances of interactions?
Okay, so as we were seeing, vitamins of course have a lot of stability issues, and the trace minerals, if they are used in inorganic form, they can have a impact on the potency of the vitamins. So said that, it all depends upon how well we have a knowledge with respect to the powder properties, so the physical and chemical characteristics of both the sources of the vitamins as well as the sources of the trace minerals that we use, understanding the possible interactions, and then including the carriers, the free flow agents and the processing aids accordingly, so that no negative interaction takes place. So this is again, we have established through various studies that we have carried out in vitro. And yeah, so when we combine the vitamins and trace minerals together, we give them a shelf life of around 9 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Question for Mr. Sandeep. The question is that how do we ensure traceability? You mentioned we've talked about this during the presentations, but can you further elaborate on it?
Okay, so traceability basically determines is a parameter where we can track back to whatever ingredients we are using into our product, and basically we check it who is the manufacturer and the supplier. So as Dr. Sabiha said, that our ingredient assessment process involves the manufacturer and its process of how he manufactures the ingredient. So right from the scratch, how the ingredient has been manufactured and it has been supplied to us, the storage at our warehouse, the incoming and the storage, basically, we keep the track by means of our a tool known as individual supplier assessment tool, wherein we keep a track of all these ingredients in a database, and it has been given a peculiar item code which has been transformed into a barcode which is applied to the ingredients at the incoming station and the storage, where it has been used during the production. As I said, during the production, the individual barcode is scanned during intake, and this particular ingredient has been recorded into the system. And when the finished good is packed, this particular batch has also been given a barcode, where when it has been dispatched to the customer, we can get, if any problem arises at the customer end, we can get back. When we receive this complaint, we can track down that which product has been having this problem and break down into the ingredients level. And if any problem is there at the ingredient level, we take it back to the manufacturer. So this all process has been consolidated into a tool known as global lot tracker. So this is how we can basically trace back to whatever ingredient we are using into our facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Next question for Dr. Sabiha again. It's with regards to MaxCare. The question is that, do we need to exclude any specific feed additives, and how do we handle them?
Okay, thanks, Doctor. Good question, actually. If you see MaxCare, it has all the supplements, feed supplements, and required feed additives. So there are a few feed supplements that can interact negatively, reducing the activity of other vital vitamins, trace minerals, etc. So one such example is choline chloride. Even though there are many protected forms available in the market, we highly recommend to avoid choline chloride usage in the MaxCare because it can reduce the stability of the premix. And the other one is the macro ingredient source of sodium, so salt. Salt is highly hygroscopic, and it can also affect the stability of trace minerals and vitamins. So these are the two major feed supplements, I would say. We do not recommend to be added into the base mix, even if it's produced at the customer end. And so we do not add it in MaxCare as well. And they have to be added directly into the mixer while the feed is being produced. And of course, I did mention that we are an antibiotic-free facility, so we do not use any AGPs or anticoccidials because we produce premixes of different species, so aqua, shrimp, dairy, etc. And we do not want cross-contaminations to occur. Thanks, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor. And because of constraint of time, we'll be only able to take one last question. But for all the other questions we've received, we'll be coming back personally and replying to your question. But the last question is for both Dr. Sabiha and Dr. Suyash, maybe you can answer this. Precautions needed if premix is to be kept at farm for 3 to 4 days. What are the precautions that need to be taken?
Okay, maybe I can go first, and then if required, Dr. Suyash can add upon. So if premixes are to be stored in the farm conditions, preferably it should be kept in a place away from moisture. So no water seepage or possibilities of water coming into the bags or touching the bags. To be kept away from walls, on wooden pallets, and away from sunlight with the ample amount of air quality and ventilation present in that area. And once the bags are opened after usage, we should ensure to close those bags so as to reduce the oxidation or the stability of the premix. So these are the ones, the main precautions to be taken if the premixes are to be kept in the farm conditions. Thanks, Doctor.
Apart from what Dr. Sabia has mentioned, specifically in dairy farms, the premix bags needs to be basically taken care of, particularly as Dr. Sabia has mentioned, away from moisture, adequate ventilation. But one critical observation which has been seen, that while making on-farm mix, people use the same tool to take out all the materials. So anywhere, if you are just using the same for corn powder or anything, the same instrument should not be put in the premixes, just to avoid contaminations. Apart from that, Dr. Sabia has mentioned all the points. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suyash. Thank you, Dr. Sabiha. And we will also be closing the webinar now. But before we close, I would like to thank all the speakers for their insightful presentations. And a special thanks to all the participants for taking time out of your busy schedules and joining us today. And to all the team members who have joined us for supporting us. We can be reached at customer care india@nutrition.com. Do follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and we also have a website for any questions or any clarifications you would want. Thank you. Thank you all for joining.